Hello again, and welcome back to Carrying On, a deep dive into my record collection here in Thailand. Today, I'm going to talk a bit more about a record that I bought on my travels in Songkla last month. Uh, a couple of videos ago, I talked about that trip I made to Songkla and the record shop I found, Nusantara, and the listening bar. And one of the records I found there was by an American jazz vocalist called Michael Franks. And I didn't know anything about him. He's one of those guys who just passed me by. You know, it's a big area, jazz and vocal jazz, and I'm not an expert in the kind of quiet storm, smooth jazz area, which he gets lumped into a bit unfairly, actually. Yeah, so he was a new artist to me, and I discovered an album which I've really fallen in love with, and I just love this album. And it sent me back, of course, to Spotify uh, to delve into his pretty extensive back catalogue. To be fair, it was amazing. It's one of those great moments when you discover a new artist, for me anyway, new to me, and you go into their back catalogue, and there's so much interesting stuff in his case, going right back to the 70s, right back to 1976, actually, with his first album, The Art of Tea by Michael Franks. But then, going through his back catalogue, yeah, I'd just like to pick out two or three other albums which I've really enjoyed. The first one, his second album after The Art of Tea, called Sleeping Gypsy from 1977, which is a great record. It's jazzy, it's soulful. There's some great tunes on there. It's a bit more laid back than the first album, The Art of Tea. But it's a wonderful sounding record with some Brazilian vibes in there too. Uh, and then 1979's Tiger in the Rain, another beautiful record. I prefer this slightly more jazzy experimental side to him in this period than his more poppy stuff, which I still enjoy the kind of poppy jazz funk stuff as well on The Art of Tea and on Birchfield Nines. But I prefer this more experimental. I mean, it's still fairly commercial. Yeah, it's still fairly easy to listen to, but there's more going on. There's more instrumentation. There's some orchestration. There's a little more subtlety in the songwriting on these two albums, Sleeping Gypsy and Tiger in the Rain. And then quite a bit later, actually, 1990, is an album called Blue Pacific, which is an album that is seen as a bit of a comeback and a return to form after a dip in the mid to late 80s. And there was a gap of 3 years between his last record in 87 and then this one in 1990, Blue Pacific, a beautiful album. It's got a little bit of that more kind of 80s production, came out in 1990, but it still sounds like a record of the 80s, but the songwriting is brilliant. It's some of his best songs actually on Blue Pacific, I'm realizing. But I'm still kind of digging around and finding records. But the record I'm talking about today is this one, Objects of Desire. And yeah, I remember someone wrote, I when I was just going through the records that I bought um, in SoundCloud, and I was just chatting briefly about them, someone wrote in the comments, "Yeah, this is a gorgeous album," and I hadn't really got into the album yet. I think I'd only really got into the first one or two tunes, but I realized there was something there, and I liked it, and I was gonna go back to it, and I did, and I really fell for this record. Yeah, Objects of Desire. You can see this is a painting by Paul Gauguin, the famous artist here. A beautiful piece of artwork, actually. And then he's there on the back around that time. This is 1982, by the way. He released this record, 9 tracks, and an exemplary list of musicians he had playing on this, produced by Michael Kalina and Ray Bardani. But some of the musicians, Michael Brecker, Randy Brecker, the saxophone players, Larry Carlton, the guitar player. Some really nice guitar work on this album. Um, uh, Steve Kahn, Harvey Mason on the drums, David Sanborn on the saxophone as well, of course, and Luther Vandross and Bonnie Raitt also doing kind of backing vocals here. So he really got, and as on a lot of his records, he gets an exemplary list of musicians to play with him. So this album, as I was saying, I like that more kind of experimental jazzy side to him. And this is, I guess it's in that area, but it's 1982 and it's got that kind of jazz funk vibe. There's a really taut bass running through this album, and there's some really funky tracks here, which I'm happy to play as a DJ, especially earlier on in the evening. These aren't just this is not smooth jazz. This is funky, funky jazz vocal music with a lot of soul in there too. It's really the very best of early 80s production, really. This this sounds fantastic, this record, I think. And it opens with the first track here. Let's have a look at the track list you can see there. And it opens with the track Jealousy, which is just a great, this is a great tune. And it's upbeat, it's funky, it's got a great lyric about a jealous guy who just can't handle a relationship. And it goes into track two there, Ladies' Night, which it just builds brilliantly. It starts off, you think, okay, this is just a nice little, like, soul jazz kind of jam, but there's a really great, it builds really well. And then a female vocal comes in as well. I guess it's Bonnie Raitt there. And it's just a great tune about kind of these kind of ladies' night bars, where guys go to maybe try and to pick someone up, or girls go there too to do the same thing. It's just a great tune. And then, yeah, track three is a bit of a highlight as well. No Deposit Love. What a great tune this is. I mean, this really, play this loud, and it's like, well, this is not easy listening. This is not smooth jazz. This is a really fantastic, funky tune that you just want to play at top volume. I love this tune. No Deposit Love. Laughing Gas is a really, really nice upbeat tune. The album's kind of there's an intensity to his lyrics, but this is a kind of feel good kind of record in many ways. And this is a great tune uh, about just that feeling of being in love. It's just a great love song. It feels like I'm on laughing gas. The chorus goes, and it's just I just want to make this feeling last. Is the rhyme brilliant? Love it. Wonderland is a kind of is the end of a side one, and it's a beautiful ballad that just kind of winds things down a little. And it almost the start of side two is a kind of interesting little trick. It kind of sounds like a continuation of Wonderland at the start. The instrumentation, it kind of and it's another slower song called Tahitian Moon. But it's a great. There is a theme running through a lot of Michael Franks's lyrics, and he is a great lyricist. He studied English. He knows his literature, and you can see that in his songwriting. And Tahitian Moon is a song about escape. There's a theme, as I said, going through some of his lyrics about escaping, the world as it is, finding love, finding romance, shacking up with someone in some beautiful, lonely, cabin in the woods, or in this case, I think this is where the artwork comes in here, like Tahitian Moon, finding a beautiful Tahitian woman who he spends time with on the beach and they fall in love. And he never wants to go back to the kind of reality, maybe, of Western life. But it's a beautiful song. And then Flirtation. I played this actually. I played this out in the bar I sometimes play at, and it sounded great. It's just it's a bit more funky, a bit more upbeat. I love it. Really, really catchy tune. Great instrumentation. Love Duet, another beautiful tune as well. I mean, the highlights just continue really with this record. There's nothing which um, isn't grade A. It is the cliche, all killer, no filler. This album, and I love that feeling when you find an album like this that you just want to play and play again. and you're addicted to it, and it just gives you that happy serotonin high that great albums do. And it's a big reason that I love music and I fell in love with music is is falling in love with albums and not just songs. And that's fine. Sometimes you fall in love with, two or three songs on an album and the rest is, sometimes not so great. That does happen in this genre as well, in jazz and soul jazz. But it's really special when you find an album that is just fantastic from start to finish. You want to, especially when it's vocal jazz as well, just want to sing along with it. You love the songs. It's not just the instrumentation. It's not just an audiophile thing with, this, you know, or a muso thing. You're just bellowing out the lyrics, with Michael Franks, or I am on this album. I love it. It's a fantastic album. Ends with No One But You, a beautiful kind of again romantic song. Uh, yeah, I mean this album is generally it's more upbeat. I mean there's a bit of a world weary vibe to it at times, especially in those first two or three songs. Like No Deposit Love is really talking about, hey, I'm just tired of this kind of, you know, like lack of commitment. You don't have to pay a deposit. It's just, you know, um, uh, there's kind of one night stand kind of culture that he's tired of on that song. And so there's that world weariness, but there's also a lot of optimism and love in this record, as there is in all his records, actually. And yeah, there's just it's certainly been my musical discovery of 2025 so far, and it's been a really great one for me. Michael Frank's Objects of Desire. I have to say thank you to Nusantara Records down in Songkla. Yeah, they really know how to curate their collection. They had this one and they had Tiger in the Rain, which I now also really like. I would buy it if I was down in the shop again. Those are the two records they've got, and they are two of his best records. But this one, luckily, it's my favorite. And I don't think that's just because I have it on vinyl. This is a really great, great record and a great example and a great kind of uh, um, a great way to get into Michael Franks, I think, because the songs here are really accessible. They're not too smooth. They're certainly not cheesy. Sometimes he's accused of being a bit cheesy, but no, I mean this not at all. This is yeah, I mean, I guess the obvious comparison would be kind of late period Steely Dan. And there's a little bit of gaucho kind of vibe on the cover there. And yeah, there's a little bit of that kind of, gaucho vibe here, but it's done in his own way. I mean, this is absolutely his own artistic work. But yeah, there's that late period Steely Dan, early kind of like Donald Fagen kind of vibe here. And yeah, it stands comparison with them, which is for me that's a huge compliment. So yeah, this is my little deep dive into Michael Frank's Objects of Desire, and a bit of a deep dive for me into his back catalogue. I've really enjoyed that over the last month or so. So yes, that's me carrying on again. And that's it for me today. Thanks a lot for listening and watching everything that I've done here. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next time here on Carrying On. If you want to leave a comment about Michael Franks, what is your favorite Michael Franks album yourself? Objects of Desire is the one for me. How about you? Um, uh, Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.